bead seated. Smooth. Hello and welcome back to the Extra Crank. In today's video, I'm installing for the first time ever a rim protection insert. Specifically, I'm trying out Rimpact. Rimpact comes in two kind of flavors. You've got the Pro and you've got the original. Now I've already installed the original in the front, so today I'm going to be installing the Pro in the rear. I'd like to think anyway that I've learned all my mistakes from doing the other one because it's a little bit tricky to get right. So hopefully this video will demystify things a little. The Pro is just like the original except for the fact it has this additional layer of harder foam right on the very top. So you've got the lower density foam in the lower 2/3 and then this high density strip about 8 or 9mm thick around the outside. Now in my previous video you'll notice that I went ahead and pretty much buckled my rear wheel to within an inch of its life. I did actually get it straightened, got it trued, and I went on a couple of rides on it. It was okay, it held air, but it was coming straight out of true again, and on the side where I dinged it, to get it true, all of the spokes on one side were up super tight, and the ones on the other side were pretty much slack, so it wasn't really a long-term solution. I don't think it's going to last. Anyway, I ordered a new wheel, and here it arrived. So this is the Spank 350 Vibracore rear wheel rim, built up on the exact same E13 hub, same disc, same cassette and everything, so it's just a new rim, just transferred my bits onto it. So that really brings me to the first mistake and the first thing that you can very easily forget to do when you're doing this, and that is stick your valve in before you do anything else. The Rimpact kit comes with a couple of tubeless valves, but they're special tubeless valves in that they've got the holes around the outside. That means that when they're pressed up against the insert, air can still get in and out of the tyre. Right, that's all nice and tight, not over tight. Now the way this rim protector works is pretty simple. It literally just fits onto your rim. So it's got a little profiled shape that just fits within the dish of the rim itself. Dish. Mistake number 2 is don't put it on and then try and put it on the tyre because it just won't fit. I'll show you what I mean. So it's pretty easy to actually just get this on. Just like that. So when it's in the tyre, that's how it sits. And it protects the rim and allows you to run some lower tyre pressures. But like I say, once you've done this, it won't then fit into the tyre itself. Just physically will not go in. So you can't even get the first bead seated. So don't do that. Take this off. So what I found worked best is to install the tyre without the insert in at all, just to make sure you've got a seated bead. Then go ahead and remove one of the beads completely, pull the tyre all the way out so that you've got the maximum kind of access to the cavity there. Then place in the insert, really work it into the gap, make sure it's sitting nice and straight, and then with a little bit of force start reseating that bead that you deseated. Remembering in this case that you need to then leave a small gap in order to place your tubeless sealant. Because it won't go in through the, well, it may go in through the valves, but with this insert in the way, I don't think it'll spread around properly. So I'd rather just leave the gap, pour it in at the very end. That's a mistake I made on the last one. I was sweating and swearing getting that second bead on, only then to remember I hadn't put any sealant in, and actually getting that off the bead again was pretty tricky. Without further ado, I'm going to stick on this tyre to get the bead seated. So once you've got it into this point, it's tempting to just think, well, I can just get the insert in there. But again, from experience, I can tell you that's really not that easy. Because the tyre's not right up onto the bead, the cavity space is a bit less than you expect, and actually getting it in and all the way in over the lip of the rim, it really just, I don't know, it didn't really work for me. So I would recommend that you go the extra step and actually get this seated onto the wheel properly before you proceed. Rookie mistake there. Didn't get the tyre over the valve, the head of the valve stem. Luckily you can just pop it over like that. Right, well, I've got no intention of using this sealant indoors, so I'm going to try and do this without any sealant, just to get it to pop onto the rim. The tubeless stems provided with the kit, being tubeless, have the option of being able to remove the core to allow greater airflow in there to just get this inflated. We're doing this without a compressor. I'd say it's pretty much essential. You can get proper core extractor tools, but I don't have one, so I use pliers. Now with the core removed, simply a case of getting on the track pump and getting her inflated. That's it up to 25 quite happily. Hopefully that'll just pop into place shortly. Seems like it's on all the way around on that side. Yep, that's seated. Normally expect a few more pops and crackles, think I only heard one. Right, time for the rush of air. So at this point, it doesn't really matter which side you pick, but time to unseat one of those beads, just so I can get that insert back in. Really careful when you're doing this not to accidentally unseat the other bead. I shall just have to start again, which is just a bit of a pain in the ass. So now that we have one bead unseated, you can hook a tie lever under and start to get yourself that cavity. So now we have a gap all the way around, which looks just like the gap I showed you earlier on, but believe me, it's just a few millimeters bigger than it was. Now it's time to install the insert itself. And I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way of doing this in terms of where to put the seam, be it right above the valve or opposite the valve. I've also noticed on this one, and I don't think it's a design feature, I think it might just be a bit of a flaw, but there's a small area here where it just looks like it's thinned out slightly. So I think in the absence of any more data, I'm going to aim to put that thin bit just over the valve stem itself, because that's always a tricky bit, is getting this just over that little head of the valve stem. So I'll do that. So I'll start at the valve stem end and push her in. At this stage, really you're just focusing on getting it inside the tyre, and as you'll see, getting it onto the rim kind of sorts itself out. So now the insert is fully within the tyre. It's time to push it over the rim and into place. As you saw before when I did it without the tyre in place, it's not the hardest thing in the world to get over the rim. Right, that is now fully inside the tyre. Working hard just to make sure all parts of this insert were sat over the rim correctly. Now, if you can see a bit of the square edge profile, don't know where that shows up just there, then you know it isn't quite central on the rim. So when you see those, just try and rotate that in a little bit, just so that insert sits as flat as possible inside the tyre. And you're looking for it to be roughly even all the way around. A little bit of variation, I don't really think it matters. You're not going to notice that out on the trail. Okay, so now that the rim protector's in, the Rimpact's right there where it needs to be on the rim, the tyre's on one bead, it's just a case of getting the other bead back on. And remembering, of course, to leave that little gap at the bottom so you can add the sealant. Let's crack on, see what I can do by hand. Anything I can't do by hand, I'll use trusty levers. So this is a little bit harder than doing it without a insert in, but at this stage, not that much harder. So I'll use the tie levers just to work this bead around. So that's just about the right sized gap. See there, I've got a little gap just to place that into. I'm going to head outside because the thought of exploding this tyre and showering this room in little bits of sealant, I'd have to just leave home and never come back. There we go. Again, no pops, no bangs. Oh no! I didn't align up my valves with the tyre logo. Will these wheels even work? So there we have it then. That's a Rimpact Pro and a Rimpact Original in my rear and front tyres respectively. I hope that was a useful guide. Anyway, there wasn't really a huge amount online. There were a couple of videos, but I sort of did most of that the first time round on trial and error. A few of the mistakes I made whilst putting my front wheel together, I corrected on the rear wheel and tried to tell you all about them. So a couple of spoke hole leaks, that's more just of a tubeless thing. I don't think that's got anything to do with the Rimpact, so I'll keep an eye on those over the next 12 hours or so. If I need to, I'll top up the air, and if I really need to, I'll have to do it again, but I'm hopeful that won't happen. Alright then, when I'm out on my next ride, I'm going to try running some lower pressures. I'm going to see if I can feel the difference between what it was like before and what it's like now. Really interested to see how this Spank 350 Vibracore wheel holds up. Interested to see if I can notice any of that kind of vibration damping you're supposed to get from that foam. And yeah, and I'll give you my honest thoughts on how the Rimpact performs. If it stops me getting any rim dents, it means I can run lower pressures, a bit more corner confidence. Whatever my thoughts are going to be, I'll let you know. So until next time, I've been the Extra Crank, and I'll see you on the next one.